Their overall study, 61% of all authors are setting their books in a place where they live or have lived. Well, as I said, that's probably not a big surprise. You probably know people. Maybe you are one of those people who wrote at least your first book, set where you live, with a lead character, a protagonist who looks a whole lot like you. Maybe a superpowered, genius-level version of you, but still basically you. And that's not always the best way to go. I've written about this in my forthcoming book on description, the next Red Sneaker book, Description and Setting, but since that's not going to be out for a while, let me just go ahead and talk about it. What you want to do when you choose your setting is not choose the location that's going to be easiest for you to write, but to choose the location that's going to be best for the story. Look at setting as yet another way to plus whatever you're doing, to increase the appeal, to make people want to read it more, or to heighten the setting, heighten the tension, the drama. This is not what people have always said. Back at OU, where I went to school for some years, I didn't have this experience, but there was a professor there named Jack Bickham who was very well respected and taught, among other people, the author of the Dresden Files, who actually took his course, went there, wrote the first Harry Dresden novel right there, and it was Bickham who told him there are 3 locations and showed him a map and said New York, Chicago, or L.A. Bickham's theory was that you always set your book in a big city because readers were more likely to pick up and read a book set in the place where they lived. So it only made sense to choose a place where a lot of people lived. And as fans will know, of the 3, Chicago seemed most appealing, and so the author began writing those Dresden File books set in Chicago, even though he hadn't been there, which led to some minor geographical boo-boos in the first books, not that anybody cared. They were still fabulous. Well, my point being that I'm not sure even that is the most valid reason to pick your location, maybe more so in the pre-Amazon era. But, have I ever picked up a book because it was set where I lived? I don't think so. But I will pick up a book set someplace that intrigues me or interests me. So think about how to make your book more appealing, maybe how to strengthen it, perhaps in an area where you think it isn't strongest. If you're worried that, oh my gosh, it's a romance novel, it's just another romance. How can I make it more interesting to those Hallmark and Walmart readers who might pick it up? Answer: set it someplace wonderful, someplace glamorous, someplace exotic, someplace readers haven't been but would be interested to read about. Or if you're writing a thriller, think, how can I use the setting to heighten the tension? Maybe you want a location that's dangerous, filled with intrigue, dark alleys and suspicious characters. Whichever way you go, don't choose a setting just because it's the easiest thing for you to write. Choose a setting that will make your book better. My interview for this episode is with Liz Berry, who is a book marketing expert and a wonderful person who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years now. In fact, I've had Liz out to our annual writing conference where she spoke on book marketing, and maybe we can get her out sometime soon because I think her prominence in the industry has only grown since that time. Liz, as you may know, is married to best-selling thriller author Steve Berry, author of the Cotton Malone series. In fact, one of those is number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list as I record this. But Liz was into marketing even before she knew Steve, and she knows book marketing like nobody else. She has now taken that knowledge and formed a company co-founded with her friend MJ Rose, also a very distinguished author. And they've created these companies that, among other things, have produced the 1001 Dark Nights romance series, which, as I said in the opening, has been incredibly successful in really a very short period of time. To me, what Liz has done is the model of the future of publishing, because we're not talking about big corporations in New York. We're talking about regular people with smarts and entrepreneurial spirits who have their pulse on the publishing world as it exists today, not yesterday, figuring out how to build a successful publishing company. And how did she do it? By giving readers books they wanted to read. Here's what Liz had to say. Liz, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
It's so good to talk to you. And I feel lucky because I know that you are one of the busiest people in this business.
Oh, thank you. I try to keep busy.
Yeah, that would be quite apparent. You're just coming off of a book tour, right?
I am. My husband is a New York Times bestselling author, Steve Berry, as you very well know. And we just did a book tour for his new release, The Warsaw Protocol. So hopefully it worked.
Steve's a great guy. But I want to talk about you, Liz.
Thank you.
Let's hear about everything you've been doing. You've got an incredibly successful, several lines of books. There's the novels, the novellas. Tell me about it. Tell everybody what you're doing.
Sure. So back in 2014, my business partner and I, MJ Rose, who's also a best-selling author, started a company called Evil Eye Concepts. And under that umbrella, we created a brand in the romance world called 1001 Dark Nights. Since then, we've grown our company and have been joined by our new business partner, Jillian Stein, and we've opened another imprint, Blue Box Press. So the difference between the two is 1001 Dark Nights utilizes New York Times best-selling romance writers who write novellas for the brand that allow us to cross-market the novellas, therefore cross-marketing the brands to elevate everyone's brand. Mm-hmm. And then with Blue Box Press, we kind of do the same thing with novels from USA Today, Wall Street Journal, and New York Times best-selling authors, using their novels within their brands to elevate them. So yes, we are publishing books, but at our core, we are a marketing company.
I get it. So how do you find your authors? Do you find them? Do they find you? What happens?
We're very, very, very lucky that we all love to read. So as we started, when 1001 Dark Nights first started, MJ and I really just went to our friends who were some of our favorite writers. There were 12 of them. We did one novella a month. And the pitch went something like this. Listen, I don't know what this is going to be, but could you just write me a novella? So please. And they said yes, thank God. Now it's a little bit different, but everything still stems from the favorite books that we love to read, the series we love to read, and the authors who have that New York Times designation, but also have tremendous brands and relationships built with their readers, because we focus on the relationships with readers, the relationships with other authors, and that's kind of how we go about finding new authors. We do have authors that come to us as well. And so we just kind of look at everything. We look at the brand size, we look at the relationship size, and we go from there.
Do you have any particular, I know that romances come in a lot of different flavors and genres and subgenres. What kinds are you publishing?
We work with contemporary romance and paranormal romance exclusively. And the reason is because those two genres cross-market the best. I love historical romance. It's one of my favorite brands. But when we were incepting the company and looking at what cross markets the best, historical just seems to be in its own category, and it was very hard to cross it with contemporary, whereas paranormal crosses beautifully.
Now, are some of the paranormals historical, or is it all contemporary?
They're they're contemporary. They're contemporary paranormal romance and contemporary romance.
Contemporary, but some have paranormal and some do not. Is that right?
Correct. Yes, that's correct. Definitely.
So what would be like the definitive Dark Nights novel? Or novella. Give me an example. Is this in the Twilight realm or what?
So that's the beauty of it. We have a foreword in all of the novellas that we basically took the story of the Arabian Nights and Scheherazade
Right.
And we created a time traveler, and our time traveler switched places with Scheherazade. But because she was a time traveler, she had been to all planes of existence. She'd been in and out of stories. And so she was able to tell her story every night to the king, but it could be a vampire story one night. It could be a cowboy story one night. It doesn't matter what it is, a billionaire romance story or a werewolf. Who cares? That's the beauty of the brand, is because our Scheherazade can tell any story she wants. And within the stories, they're coming from the author's series with their own happily ever after, which is a romance term we all love to use. Right. So it's a standalone contained story, and it can be in any of those genres and any of those stories. The idea being, if the reader likes this novella and likes the style of the author and the way she tells the story and the world that she's built, then they could go back and read the back list and pre-order, hopefully, the front list.
Aren't you kind of obligating yourself to publish 1,001 of these, though?
We can only hope. We can only hope. We do about 20 to 24 a year, somewhere around in there. So we've got a little time.
Sounds like?
Yeah, about 2 a month,
wow.
Depending. Yeah.
That is
so
what
we've got some time.
The last part of December or something?
We do. We kind of take a little break after the beginning of December. And it really depends on the author's pub schedules as well, publication schedules. So we work around them. This year we have 20. Last year we had 24. So it just kind of depends on author availability and contracts and all those types of things.
Oh, you'll soon be releasing one every other day or something. I know you.
I hope not. I've got to sleep sometimes. And you know me, Bill. I have to go shop for shoes every once in a while.
It's important. Hey, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
How many of these have you done so far?
We've done about 100 of the novellas with Dark Nights. In terms of total different books that we've published, including bundles and novels and crossover collections and things like that, we're a little over 150.
Wow, that is impressive. And I know the sales are even more impressive. Can I get you to talk about that? How many copies?
Yeah, we're right there at about 3 million books. You kind of have to pinch yourself because we've only been around, like I said, since 2014. So we built the brand very hard and very fast.
Yeah. How does that break down? Is it mostly ebooks or print?
It is. Yeah. We are in print, but with the price point that you would have to charge for like a $9.99 print book versus a $2.99 novella, we are predominantly ebooks. But you do have some readers out there, especially with some of our brands that have been around a little bit longer, like Heather Graham or a Gina Showalter, brands like that. We tend to sell more print books with them than we do with some of the others.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming, are you having trouble getting them in stores?
We're not actively in like a Barnes & Noble type situation. We are print on demand. But again, it's just because there's not that demand. A novella, if you're talking about 30,000 words at a $9.99 price point, first of all, it's a thin little book. It's just better in the e-format, quite frankly.
Oh, I completely get it. But I think a lot of the people listening to the podcast are trying to, make decisions themselves about, do I want to mess around with print?
Print is very difficult. For your listeners, they should know, unless they're with a publisher who's willing to shoulder that risk, print on demand is a very good option because you don't have the risk of the print run. Trying to get into stores, and even if you succeed in getting into physical stores, that's a wonderful thing, except to shoulder the risk of the print run can be daunting. Because you're going to, only about if you're lucky, 50% of those books are going to sell. Probably more like 30% of those books are going to sell. And then you've had to pay to print the whole run. And then 70% of them are basically to be destroyed.
So when you talk about selling print copies, you're still talking about selling them online. You're just selling print copies online. Correct.
Exactly.
What about audiobooks? We keep hearing that audio is the boom field right now. Have you tried that?
All of our books are in audio. Audible has been very good to us, very generous with us. They love the 1001 Dark Nights series, and they love our other series as well. We've also had luck with Blackstone, who's an audio company, Tantor, who's an audio company, with some of our other series that we do with Blue Box Press. Audio is pretty awesome right now. They're doing some innovative things, and I can't compliment them enough. Again, we're in a position where we're not producing the audios ourselves. They've been purchased from the audio publishers, and they're taking care of that. But I do have a lot of our authors who they go the route of publishing the audiobooks themselves, and they've been very successful with it.